You know those tiny little green bottles that you're seeing popping up around the world tour? Like Mads Pedersen has them in all his Instagram stories. The world tour riders will tell you that it helps them push a little bit harder without as much burn, that it delays the onset of lactate production. Well, is that true? Well, that's what I wanted to find out today. So today I'm sitting down with the physiologist behind it all, Dr. Filip Larsen. We're going to find out the real science behind these tiny little shots, and we're going to design a testing protocol so I can figure out if it actually works on me. You're going to enjoy this episode. Let's jump in. Filip, welcome to the Roadman Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
I'm excited for this one. There's a lot of hype about this. If anyone's watching on video, you'll see what I have in my hand. It's a little bottle called Llyods, and it claims to reduce lactate buildup and improve performance. I started hearing about this before they were involved with the show at all, before I ever met Oscar. Like, friends in the world tour started talking about they were trying this new supplement. It seemed to be kind of the next iteration after the beetroot juice storm came along, and people were whispering about this, but I wasn't seeing it like pushed in the heavy marketing campaigns like we've seen ketone with this huge marketing campaign, but very little real world on the ground use from what I could see. Llyods was very different. Everyone seemed to be using it. Very few people seemed to be talking about it. So today I'm really excited to dig into the science about if this works, how we use it, should we be using it, and maybe if it's plausible to set up an experiment where I can actually test this myself. And if you're up for it, maybe we'll do this as a two-part interview where today we can establish the protocol and I'll go off and I'll test it and report back if it actually worked or if I was just on the toilet for 6 hours a day. We'll find out.
Yeah, hopefully not. Now it will be interesting. That's just the way it should be tested in real life with real athletes.
Before we jump into the questions, what's your role in Llyods at the moment?
So I'm a scientific advisor. This is a spin-off from the research we've been doing for a long time. For transparency, when we found this really interesting findings, how it worked in the body, we decided to patent it, and we continue to improve the product, make it more stable, and it was a lot of development going on. And then we decided this needs to be out on the market. So we started a company together with 3 entrepreneurs, and I'm continuing to do research, and they are taking care of the day-to-day business. So I'm still a co-founder there, so I have my conflict of interest.
So, with that said, I think you're a scientist of notable credentials, and I'll link some of your work below, and maybe we'll get a chance if the podcast goes on to talk about some of your other work, which is amazing and groundbreaking in sports physiology. But just in plain English, because I'm not a science guy, this is a 25, it's a 6cl bottle. It's a small bottle for anyone who can't see it. What's in this? What's the active pathway? How's it working?
Yeah, so the active part is broccoli sprouts, and they contain a substance called isothiocyanate, which is a whole group of different molecules. So there's many different isothiocyanates, but that's a compound that's really abundant in broccoli and all cabbage, all plants from the cabbage family, but especially in sprouts. And this has been known for quite some time, so since the late 90s, and it was first seen as something that could potentially inhibit cancer growth and be used to lower oxidative stress, reduce inflammation and stuff like that. So broccoli sprouts that's the main part. I think it's 80%. So it's an extract of the broccoli sprouts that we stabilized, because it tends to be quite unstable at room temperature. So we stabilized it, and then it's lemonade, citrus juice, and a little bit of sugar.
Yeah, there's only 3 ingredients in this. Broccoli, 80%, lemon, 15%, sugar, 5%. So I'm guessing they're greater than the sum of their parts. When they come together, how does it go about reducing lactate production at a given workload?
Yeah, like the mechanism there, how it actually works, it's like we don't really understand it fully, I must say. So, and it was a completely unexpected finding when we did the studies. So, and there's a lot of, they try to dissect the mechanism, how it fully works in the cancer studies, but it's still out there. What is the actual mechanism? We know that it's inducing like a signaling pathway in the muscle called NRF2. That's like how it was invented. And NRF2 is like really important for your training adaptations. So when you train, NRF2 signaling goes up, and that sends like downstream signaling for creation of more mitochondria.
Sorry for my ignorance around this topic, but so what's NRF2?
Yeah, so NRF2 is it's a protein complex and a signaling pathway. So sometimes it's called a master regulator. So, and what it does is that it's when NRF2 is turned on, it tells the body to start to detoxify itself from harmful chemicals, for example, and to increase the body's own antioxidative defense. So it's trying to increase its own defense against external stressors, you can say.
And what are the ways that we typically used to turn on NRF2?
The most common or the most well-known one, I would say, is exercise. So when you do a normal training session, you expect NRF2 to increase.
And by taking this shot, what observationally have we seen as the effect on NRF2 production with the shot and without the shot?
Yeah, so what we've done is in our study, we took recreational cyclists and they trained really hard for 1 week. Then we measured NRF2 expression. So we take a biopsy from the muscles, we go into the muscles, take out a small piece of the muscle, and then we measure how much of the protein NRF2 that's in there.
And is NRF2, sorry to jump in, is NRF2 a way of measuring an adaptation to the training in this sense?
Yeah, you can say it's an adaptation in some way. So it's the master regulator. So it's something that should be turned on, but it's a little bit like turning a key. So when you turn the NRF2 key, you start a lot of different processes in the body. So it activates like several hundred different genes that's important for the body to handle oxidative stress, to produce more mitochondria, to make the mitochondria more efficient.
Interesting. It's what's that idea, the Dunning-Kruger effect? The more you know, the less you know. I have conversations with people like you, and I think I know something about sports physiology, and then it's like, oh my God, I know so little about sports physiology. Yeah.
I mean, we dove straight into like the detailed biochemistry signaling pathway there. So, and I mean, it's really complex. Just if you forget about isothiocyanates for a while and just look at how is NRF2 activated during exercise. Like if you do a training session, you expect NRF2 to increase, but it's quite complicated. It's not like it's not enough to do a light exercise. So it needs to be quite hard. And some groups have shown that it's really transient increase. So it increases for a few minutes up to maybe an hour after a training session, but then it goes down again. So it's this like turning the key to start other processes in the body. And I would say that it's still quite unknown exactly how this works.
Interesting. I'm going to definitely dig deeper into it. So sorry, I interrupted you and you're talking about the findings of this study. See, the group of amateur athletes who were training on, was it a 1 week training phase?
Yeah, exactly. So they trained really hard for 1 week. And it was a randomized, double-blinded crossover study. So they trained like 1 week, super hard training. So it was basically 4-minute or 8-minute VO2 max intervals every day for 1 week. And I mean, the intent was to to get them tired, slightly overreached, and then let them recover for a few days and see how they bounce back. So they did that with the Nomio or a placebo. And the main findings on the whole body that was unexpected was this lowering of lactate. So when they trained really hard, but they got the placebo, the training was too hard, meaning that when we measured lactate around the lactate threshold, it was actually, so say they cycle at 250 watts or something if they had a threshold there. So after this tough week, they actually had a higher lactate level at the same workload when they got the placebo, but just because they didn't adapt to the training. But when they got the isothiocyanates in the Nomio drink, it was lower. So it was a big difference there between how they responded.
This is really interesting because I've had a lot of my conversations recently. I talked to the head of performance at Checo Alua around absorption and adaptation. When I used to race in France, my director called it absorption of training, and that's, I guess we just call it adaptation of training now. So was the findings you had that it wasn't that athletes could produce more power at VO2 max, it was that they were able to assimilate or absorb that training better?
Yeah, I mean, the outcome was that they produced less lactate. They had a higher power production when we did a ramp test. But I mean, they had done this like really hard week of training before that. So what we measured was actually the interaction between really hard training and the isothiocyanates. So it seems like, they adapted better to the hard training. They could tolerate it better. And the outcome of that was a lower lactate, better power production. And also lower oxidative stress.
I can remember vividly a December training spin. I was on the back roads, there was fog, wet leaves, potholes everywhere. I was riding on a descent, one-handed, trying to stab this tiny little mode button and praying the battery would last until the final climb of the day. You know that anxiety, the is it going to die anxiety, it totally ruins your ride. And the truth is, for years, that was normal. Every season I got into this repetitive cycle. I'd end up buying a new set of lights in the winter. Normally plastic lights, plastic brackets which would invariably snap, charging ports which would fail, and batteries that would fade. Most lights feel very disposable. They're shiny for the winter and then straight into the bin at the end of the winter, and we repeat again the following winter. That all changed when I got my first set of exposure lights. Suddenly this wasn't a consumable anymore. This was a piece of kit built to last a lifetime. That's why I'm absolutely buzzing about the fully updated exposure range. Reflex 2.0 automatically adjusts the brightness of your light. It dials it down when you're going at slower speeds on the climbs, and then it unleashes the full power of the lumens on the descent, so your hands stay where they need to be, on the bars, so you don't actually crash. There's another really cool feature. It's called reserve mode, and it kicks in when runtime hits 0. It drops to a low beam and you get another 30 minutes to get you out of trouble and get you home. USB-C charging is a total game changer to my mind. It means you can get now 70% faster charging, but importantly for me, you can top up your lights from a power bank mid-ride. So if you're doing an ultra, a bike packing trip, or you're going on an event like me at Badlands, just plug it into the power bank and away you go. No need to worry about batteries failing. Exposure isn't just another set of lights. This is the last set of lights you're ever going to need to buy. Go to exposurelights.com to check out their full range. It's really interesting as well. Like, I'd be curious, and maybe you didn't study it, but the subjective feedback of athletes off that, like, are they reporting their fatigue levels? Because I know for me and for probably anyone balancing conflicting demands on their time, work, family, and trying to balance training, there's a different lens we view training through. It's like, yeah, maybe the best physiological adaptation I'll get from a session today is 4x4 VO2, but maybe I have a podcast to record this evening and I'm just not going to be cognitively that sharp if I do 4x4. It'd be interesting to see the subjective feedback on post-session fatigue levels and alertness with and without Nomio.
Yeah, definitely. Like after this study, we just, of course, we communicated with our participants, But we asked them, so how did you feel, after doing this, the two different blocks, one with placebo and one with Nomio? And a lot of them, I wouldn't say everyone, but we got the feedback that they felt that the training was easier to get through the training sessions and to recover for the next one. So remember, it was hard intervals day after day, back to back to back for 1 week. And that's really, really tough to do. And so they had some kind of subjective feeling that the body, it just absorbed the training better.
It's like, obviously we're going to go through and set up a protocol for testing formally on me, but I've been using Nomio before. We have this session called the Thursday Chop. We've run it all summer, where it's an old school chain gang just truing off hard for 1 hour on a Thursday evening. And it's my hardest session of the week. I've taken Nomio for the last 4 weeks, but I was traveling last week and I didn't get a chance to take Nomio before the session because I came straight through the session without going home. It's so hard to, with, as I say, a busy person who's balancing multiple things, it's so hard to say, was that I was on my feet all day and I had a different lifestyle, that's why I felt bad? Was there a placebo element to it? But I definitely didn't feel as good during the session. And that's why I'm super excited to set up this testing protocol to see if that's imagined from me, if it's a result of, I had a chicken curry the night before and I didn't have a chicken curry the night before the other 2 sessions. I don't know how we control for that in the ultimate study, but it was just very interesting. Before we dive on to setting up protocols and stuff for me, what's the kind of dose response curve that you're seeing? Like, is more Nomio better?
So maybe before I answer that, maybe I can comment on what you just said about the interaction between. I think that's super interesting, and maybe that's a little bit how we can think about compounds like this. Something that, it increases your body's resilience, or like how you can tolerate oxidative stress or different kinds of stresses. So, and that's a super interesting question. When you are stressed out, you have a full-time work, you have kids, whatever, why can't you train as hard as a professional athlete? If you have the same nutrition, say that you manage to get the same amount of sleep, but you're doing something that stresses you out mentally.
Yeah, I don't. It's like willpower is it's like a diminishing resource throughout the day. Like as I get older now, I'm more aware of protecting that kind of spark I have in the mornings, that spark for creativity, for sharp exchanges. Because as the day goes on, I'm less sharp, but I also feel like my willpower is gone. If I'm going to eat bad foods, it's in the evening. If I'm going to skip a training session, it's because I've left it till the evening. If I'm going to, have a fight with Sarah, it's because it's going to happen in the evening. Everything bad happens as you slide towards, lack of willpower.
Yeah, but it's not only a psychological thing. It's a really close interaction between physiological processes and psychological ones. So there's a really interesting study. I think it was dentist students. So they were given a small experimental scar, in the mouth somewhere.
Yeah.
And they did that twice. So once was during summer break or whatever, and once was before final exams. So the only difference was the same scar, but you got it either when you were not stressed or super stressed before the final exams. And they looked at the healing, physical healing. How fast did that wound in the mouth close? And I found out, so during the exam period, the wound actually healed much slower than when you were not stressed. And that is, so it's your mental stress levels, they will affect your physiological ability to recover. And
I've experienced this on stage races. I've crashed on day one of a stage race, had quite minor road rash or cuts to my knees, and been 8 days later with very little healing in the middle of the stage race, still on that cut. And I could swear to myself, and I'd say it to my girlfriend, I'd be like, I've had way worse cuts than this on the mountain bike, on training, and it's healed in like 2 days. But it's still seeping during a stage race.
Yeah. So it's something, adaptation energy, I don't know what you want to call it, something that's, you're just depleted, and that will make you recover slower, and you will feel depleted too. So
yeah, it's interesting. It's very super interesting area. Look, I'm really enjoying the kind of, we spoke about this last week when we were just chatting. These studies are great, 200 person, 500 person, double blind, placebo test. But when I talk to the best coaches, the best sports physiologists who are working with World Tour teams, they actually give very little importance to these studies, because all they really care about is the case study of one. Does Nomio work for Primož Roglic? Does ketones work for Primož Roglic? That's all they care about, because it doesn't matter if it works for 500 people, but it doesn't work for Primož Roglic if they're optimizing for results for Primož. So that's why I'm super excited to actually test this, and not just with our protocol, but observationally for myself. And it's a great hack for anyone listening. I'm not even sure if you've started doing this, Philip. It's really interesting. When I spoke to Dirk Friel, who's the founder of Training Peaks, I was asking him, what's the ways that the power users, like the best athletes in the world, interact with the platform that amateurs don't? And he said notes. Like, you put in personal comments after your sessions to give context to what's going on. He said they use it like a diary. So I started using it like a diary, but I set up a custom GPT inside ChatGPT. So every day I'll take my diary feedback and my data from the day, including sleep data, HRV, training data, put it all into ChatGPT. Now you start building this body of data. So in those notes, there will include, hey, I used Nomio before the Thursday chop this week. Now when you fast forward 2-3 months, rather than me thinking, oh, I didn't go that well because I didn't take my Nomio or because I had a busy day, it can start to pull out. Like, AI has its, brilliant use cases, but also quite well documented limitations around AI hallucinations. But what it's really good at is like uncovering data relationships. And I found some brilliant results already with this, where it's able to parse through massive amounts of data that would just be totally unworkable for me to come back and say, hey, no, I haven't got any reliable data yet on my little Nomio study, but to come back in 2-3 months time and say, hey, actually every time you've had, your best power figures, every time you've had higher HRV, higher sleep quality, Nomio seems to be one of 2 or 3 commonalities in this. That for me starts to get really, really interesting. And if you start putting your blood panels and stuff in there with that, oh boy, you've your own physiologist on the side.
Yeah, I mean, this is precision medicine in a nutshell, right? So you need to what works for you and not for someone else. But the hard thing with that is, so maybe it's that bicarb doesn't work for you, or that Nomio doesn't work for you, and that something else is really beneficial. And it doesn't matter how many double-blinded studies there's out there. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work. But how do you know? And that's the tricky part with, being N equals 1. You only care about yourself. So you need to, there's a lot of different protocols for that. Like AB design, for example, that you try, standardized training sessions with and without something, or with different kinds of preparations. But it's, I built my research career on learning from athletes and coaches, because I would say that in a lot of cases, athletes know stuff about their body that is not explained by common physiology, and coaches they know about individual differences. What do different athletes respond to? And it's not as simple as taking a muscle biopsy and knowing the fiber type. It's much more deep than that. And
it's the one bit I would caution on my kind of ChatGPT personal physician that I'm creating is, I spoke to Dr. Sam Impey around this, and that quote of, which I love, it's not what you don't know that hurts you, it's what you know for sure that just isn't so. So with AI, you can easily go down a silo. So a great example he gave me was an athlete who is cramping. So he queries his little personal GPT around why he's cramping, and the first result that comes back is electrolyte imbalances. Now you fast forward 2-3 days later when he has a consultation with this athlete knows everything about potassium levels, magnesium levels, optimum sodium rates. He's done a sweat analysis, but he's just grasped at the wrong straw. He's gone down a totally wrong direction. It's just that, hey, the opening of the race was too hard and you didn't clear that lactate fast enough. That's why you cramped. It's the simple answer. It's not the answer AI gave you, and then you went chasing this to the exclusion of all other alternatives.
Yeah, it's that kind of, I don't know, like with ChatGPT, it's really great to talk about training and talk about physiology, but it's not based on, I don't know, like there's something missing. That it's a difference between talking to a coach or someone, a researcher, someone who's really knowledgeable, and talking to ChatGPT. It's still missing something. It's probably going to get there in a few years. But right now it's, I mean, trying to use it to, summarize research. Like I want to know, look at all the training protocols out there, summarize the, highest improvement in power output for different training intensities, whatever. And it will just completely hallucinate everything. It's my experience. It creates a like really nice table with all this data, but then you go into the different references and it's not there. So but hopefully it will get there, and then it will be super useful.
Also, if you're drunk and you start talking to it about trying to find a flaw in the matrix, like, how would I know if I'm in a simulation? It creates a protocol for you to understand and defeat the simulation. Blink really fast in front of a mirror and see if there's a lag between the blink and the mirror reflection. It gets dark. It gets dark. So just circle back to that question that we put a pin in. Is the dose response curve, is more Nomio better, or is there a law of diminishing marginal returns?
There is an optimal dose. So, and that was the next question. So we did this training study. It's 2 years ago now. And that was, as I said, they trained for 1 week and got drinks on a daily basis, and then we measured before and after. So the next question was, first, is there an acute response, or do you need to like train and like get this adaptation, or if you just take one drink and wait a few hours, and then we measure lactate again, we measure blood glucose again, will it be, is there acute effects? And the second question, is there an optimal dose? So we did that study, or a colleague of mine, Michaela, here at the same institution. And so we tried a placebo and then like equivalent to 1 Nomio drink or 2 Nomio drinks. And we came to the lab, fasted in the morning, got a drink, and then 3 hours later, that's when it peaks in the blood. We did like a simple lactate threshold test, more or less. And we found that, okay, so there is an optimal dose. So 1 Nomio drink was better than 2, actually. So
interesting.
You can't take too much. And so we've been playing around with mathematical estimations of the optimal dose. So it seems to be,
is it mass dependent, body weight dependent?
I mean, it should be. It wasn't. In that study, we had 15 subjects, and we didn't see a significant correlation to body mass, but it makes sense to adjust it to body mass. Another interesting finding we have is that it seems to be more effective with more trained subjects. So if you're untrained, or you're not you don't have any training stimulus to in the body, it's the response is smaller, and the more fit the person is and the harder he trains, the better response, and that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, and I know that was the experience that I believe Mads Pedersen had when he tested Nomio. I think he was quite shocked with the early results of it, and that's why we've seen him, maybe as the most high-profile athlete using it this season.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the, as a researcher, you do stuff in the lab, you take try to find recreational athletes or students for this test, and then it's quite quite often when you go to elite athletes, you don't see a response. So, but we started to, from our network, trying this on elite athletes. We just handed it out, and they had to, just as you are supposed to do here, try it on standard training sessions. And the response we got from quite a few of them were like, this is more than what we have seen in the studies. Of course, like, it wasn't placebo controlled or anything. They just got to try it out, but so many reported like subjective feelings of like, I feel fresher, I can complete my, like, the next, if I do a hard session, the next one will feel better, I will sleep better. We have feedback that they have higher HRV during night if they measure that. Stuff like that, that's, it's anecdotal, but it's very interesting. And now we are building, actually, so we are designing the studies that we are going to do based on the elite athlete feedback that we got.
So for people that are skeptical about this, there's a saying in Ireland, like, if you go into the barber and ask him for a haircut, he's obviously going to tell you need a haircut. People are listening to this at the moment and maybe saying this isn't good science because of the conflict. Is there independent replications under peer review?
So not yet. So no one. So I mean, this is really early. So our study was published. So yeah, end of 2023, the training study, and the other one we got. So the acute response. It's still on. It's on bioRxiv. So it's an open access. So it's not peer reviewed, published yet. But I know that we got requests from other research groups, and they want to look into it. Some have gotten quite far with it already, so it's on the way. And then there's parallel studies. There's a Japanese group, for example. They've been using it together with heavy strength training, so eccentric strength training, that it gives you muscle soreness and a quite high inflammatory response if you're not used to that kind of training. And they gave the isothiocyanates like before different sessions, and what I found was like, it dampened this inflammatory response and the muscle soreness that you got. So it's not exactly the same thing as we do, but it's quite similar.
Roadman, whether you're a weekend warrior or a world tour rider, the right tools can make all the difference. Enter 4i's Precision 3 Plus Power Meter, the latest innovation from 4i, designed to help you reach peak performance. The Precision 3 Plus Power Meter is a compact yet powerful unit. It weighs just 9 grams and it's packed with features that set it apart, including integration with Apple's Find My network, giving you the peace of mind by letting you track your power meter wherever it is. Plus, you've got up to 800 hours of battery life. We all know that accuracy is key, and 4i's delivers a groundbreaking plus or minus 1% accuracy thanks to their unique 3D strain gauge technology. For those seeking even more data, the Precision 3 Plus Pro Power Meter offers dual-sided power meter metrics, giving you detailed insights into pedaling efficiency, torque effectiveness, and left-right balance. 4i's offers versatile product options to suit your needs. Choose from ride-ready power meters with pre-installed units on Shimano cranks, or up for factory-installed power meter, where you send in your crankset for a custom installation. Ready to elevate your cycling game? Trust 4i's Precision 3 Plus Power Meter. Precision, performance, and peace of mind all in one. Learn more by visiting 4iiii.com. That's 4iiii.com. I'm going to put that in the description down below. And an interesting part is knowing, like, a lot of physiologists inside these teams conduct their own research, but they've no interest in making those results public. If they find an edge, they don't want to share that edge.
Yeah, exactly. And the feedback we've gotten is, it's super encouraging, but it needs to be replicated in, like, from other other research groups, independent. And as you said, like, I completely agree with people that don't believe in stuff at first sight. It's a very, very healthy response, because 99% of all the supplements out there is it's not based on, like, it doesn't work. And but yeah. So it's very, it's a very good starting point to be super skeptical.
So with that attitude of healthy skepticism, how do I design a protocol for myself to test this at home? And if you're up for it, maybe to check back in on the results of this protocol in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, so I would suggest you to do hard and standardized sessions, because the way this seems to work is that it improves your body's ability to absorb training. So if it activates nerve 2, it will protect you from too much oxidative stress. It will lower like the inflammatory responses. So I would do like standard sessions that you're used to. Try to do hard days back to back, where you feel that, okay, so now my recovery is really challenged. I'm, slightly overreached. I'm performing slightly worse all the time. Because like if you take this and it's just you go on a 2-hour easy ride, I don't think it doesn't make sense that you would feel anything or see anything. But if you challenge yourself and challenge your system, that's how it's supposed to work.
So say we go 4x4 VO2 max efforts. Would you set that up as with Nomio? I do 2 days of 4x4 and then I do 2 days of 4x4 without Nomio and monitor heart rate, power, HRV in the mornings?
Yeah. So yeah, everything that you are used to measuring, where you know your baseline. So if you are sleeping with your Garmin watch on or with a Oura ring or something like that, and you know this is my typical HRV, this is my typical resting heart rate. Monitor that, and then also the timing. So if you do 4x4 back to back, I would suggest you take like one Nomio shot 3 hours before the session and one more before you go to sleep on both days. So in total 4 Nomios. And then maybe, because you will probably adapt a little bit to that training. So maybe a week or 2 wash out before you repeat it again. Without the Nomio, or if you do the other way around.
Yeah.
So that would be, that would be a sensible protocol to try it out.
And is it worth trying to do blood lactates with this, or is there too much of a just collection of data being bad because I'm not a professional at collecting lactate readings risk?
Yeah, lactate is one of the primary outcomes that we've seen. So we've seen it in the training study, we saw it in the acute study, and I feel that it's a robust and easy to measure outcome. But then, like, if you are used to measuring lactate, you will be aware of daily variations that can be quite substantial. And the way to handle that, from now it's n equals 1, so we can't add more Anthony's into this pilot. It needs to be you. So ideally, you should do this protocol several times, just to increase the power, get the daily, daily variations down. Try to standardize everything. Try to do the session at the same time of day, same fueling before, have the same breakfast before, because everything that's different will introduce a noise in the measurements.
Interesting. Filip, thank you so much. I know you're super busy with your studies, hard in the lab, so I do appreciate you taking the time out to kind of, help me understand why this is getting whispered around the world tour and everyone seems to be using it at the moment. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Good luck with the protocol.
Thank you.